If you have positivity high, I owe you an apology. And I'm going to tell you why. We're going to get to that. And then I'm going to give you the apology. So, we are going to talk about positivity today. And this is this is kind of it's not a difficult strength for me to talk about. I understand positivity. I've learned a lot about it. But I don't connect with it. And I'm going to explain that to you as well. And that's going to lead into why I owe you high positivity people an apology. And I'm going to explain that process. But let's start breaking down this strength, the sacred strength of positivity. We're going to cover what's sacred about it, and we're going to cover what's sinister about it. Now, and you may be asking yourself, how on earth could a strength like positivity have a sinister side? Well, it can, and I'll explain that to you as well. So let's jump right in. All right, so positivity is under the relationship building domain. It is a strength that people use to connect with the right people. It is a connecting strength, totally relationship building. Makes a lot of sense, right? So, where it lies for me, actually, it's not that low. It's number 13 for me, and for Kim, it's even a little bit higher. She has it at number 11. So that's a usable strength for, especially for Kim, because she doesn't have the strength that I have that interferes with it. So she can tap into positivity a lot easier than I can. But before I became a coach, before I started studying the strengths, I didn't understand this one, and we'll get into that. Anyway, let's talk about what makes this strength a sacred strength, and it is such a sacred strength. This is a wonderful strength. Positivity to me is like it sounds very cliche, but it's like the sunshine. Positivity, when I think of positivity, I think of the sun. The sun comes up in the morning and it lights everything up. And that's what positivity people do. People with high positivity light everything up. Now I want you to think for a minute. Maybe you don't have positivity high, but if you work with someone or live with someone with high positivity, their positivity will light you up. That's just the way it works. And the reason I like the sunshine analogy is because I like to think of a beautiful clear night with a full moon and how bright that beautiful full moon is. Well, the moon itself, of course, we know doesn't have its own light source. It doesn't generate anything. It's just reflecting the light of the sun. And that's exactly what happens when a high positivity person is in our space. When they're working with, they just cast this beautiful light, this contagious optimism about their outlook on things that we kind of look at that to gauge things, to gauge what we're supposed to be thinking or feeling, and we catch it. Like I said, it's very contagious, and so it spreads to us, and we're able to then express that and lean into that. And it feels so good to be able to lean into that positivity. Usually. There are times when it doesn't. And we'll talk about that when we get into the more sinister side of this strength. But this is a very powerful strength. I work with several people and I've coached several people with very high positivity. It's way up there. Some of them have it in their number one position. Some of it have it in their heart, their number 5 position. And they are just amazing people in even when things aren't going their way, or if they've made a big mistake, or something has happened to them that is upsetting. Usually when they tell me about it, they're still laughing about it. Even though they may actually be hurt, they express it through this kind of laughter and this kind of upbeat way of even describing when they're hurting. And that to me is amazing. And it's something I need to be very aware of and not lose sight of the fact that they are in fact hurting at that time, and they need support, but they will express it in a very kind of a lighthearted way a lot of times. And I think that's very unique among people with positivity high. So let's this contagious optimism that they have, this contagious light that they shine on everything around them, is absolutely magnificent. Where it goes sinister is that sometimes with just about any of the relationship building strengths, it the strength kind of takes over and overpowers the connection. Okay, relationship building strengths are all about connecting with the right people. So if a high positivity person gets too wrapped up in the positivity and someone else that they're trying to connect with does not have that positivity, guess what? There's going to be a potential for some dis-ease in that situation, and the person with high positivity then can keep focusing on being positive, trying to cheer that person up, trying to turn that frown upside down, kind of a concept. And maybe that's not necessarily appropriate for the situation. Maybe this person needs to feel sad. Maybe this person needs to feel angry and needs to be acknowledged for the feelings they're having. And so positivity people have a difficulty with this. This is where it gets into a bit of a struggle here, is they don't want to let go of the positivity and truly connect with that person. And so that's where this gets difficult. Positivity can, believe it or not, can actually get kind of judgy, kind of like harmony does, to where I'm positive, I'm feeling positive, so you should feel positive. And because they're so good at casting that light out there, they want everyone to be able to absorb it. And that's just not always going to happen. That's not always going to be that particular reality. So this is kind of leading into the confession I need to make, and the apology I need to make. I'm going to go ahead and give you the apology right now. If you have positivity high, I'm going to tell you right now, I have misjudged you. I'm sorry, I have. And the reason I have misjudged you is because I have, in my number one position, number one strength is restorative. Now, if you've worked with me at all in coaching or worked with Kim, one of the things we talk about are the counter strength relationships. And there are no opposites in the strengths, but there are counter strength relationships. And restorative is a counter strength to positivity. Two different ends of the spectrum. So, and let me explain why that is. When you think of positivity, first of all, you're going to have the mindset. Person with positivity, hey, things are going to work out. Everything's going to be okay. It's all going to work out in the end. Everything's going to be fine. Restorative people don't want to hear that, because restorative people are looking for problems to solve. And if there's no problems, or if they're going to work them out, all the problems are going to work themselves out all by themselves, then I don't have a job. You understand what I'm saying? I've lost my purpose if all problems are going to work themselves out. So I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that all these problems are going to work themselves out, or these problems aren't that big, or they're inconsequential, or anything like that, because I have things I need to fix. That is what restorative people do. We fix things. We find things that are broken and we fix them. If you're telling me there's nothing broken, I'm going to have a problem with that, because then you're telling me that I don't serve a purpose. So you see how this can get really tense, and this is why I've misjudged positivity people in the past. Before I learned this strength, I learned about it, and I started coaching people with positivity. So what I've learned, what I had not learned at that time, was that, well, let's just say how I used to think of high positivity people. Quite frankly, I felt that they were disingenuous. I felt that they were kind of kidding themselves or trying to kid me or fool me. I felt like they were oftentimes fake people. And that's just the conclusion I came to, I think largely because of my number one strength being restorative. And I could not have been more wrong in thinking that way. High positivity people are not disingenuous. They are not trying to just put on a happy face and ignore the seriousness of life. That's not what they do. It's just the way that their brains are wired and the way that their strength, it's the way they filter in information. They choose to filter it in a way that is positive in nature. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. It's who they are. And it's actually a very wonderful thing that they're able to do that. So this is where I had to do some serious growing. And it took me a few people of getting to, work with people with high positivity and then starting to coach them to see, oh, now I get it. Now I understand it. They're not fake. They're not inauthentic. They're not shallow. They're not any of those things that I was making these faulty, assumptions about. They weren't these things at all. They just think differently than I do. And that's the beautiful thing. And when we get to that point, in the sacred strengths to where we're able to say, I love this person for their strengths, and I love them especially because I do not have these strengths, and I can lean into them for support in these areas, that's when the magic happens. That's when the inspiration happens. And that's when the world becomes truly a better place and we all work together a lot better than we ever did. So that is to me is kind of the secret of life. As in strengths terms, that is the secret to life. If we can get to the point, when we get to the point where we can understand the strengths that we don't have and value them in others, then that is when we're going to see conflict and unease and these other kind of troubling emotions. They're going to be dramatically less, if not just disappear. So anyway, I think that's it. That covers positivity. My heartfelt apology again to all you people with Positivity High. You're wonderful people. Don't change a thing about what you're doing. Just make sure you're focusing on the connection and allow people to feel the emotions they're having because they may need to feel those. So acknowledge that, but let them know you're there to support them and you're there to connect with them. Thank you so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you next time. And remember, inspiration starts here.